This universal message show the divine and direct path to the liberation of mankind, without any distinction or segregation between human beings. Nationalist segregation cannot be used as a pretext to manipulate or subvert the meaning of this universal message. Religious schism or religious segregations cannot be used as a pretext to manipulate or subvert the meaning of this universal message. No frontier can be used as a pretext to manipulate or subvert the meaning of this universal message. The secret services and spy agencies that attack our body, our health, our privacy, with weapons and despicable methods that are the shame of all humanity, organize and perpetrate militarized, obscene and manipulative segregation, when they perpetrate in total complicity, abject and ignominious, dirty crimes such as mass murder, genocide, torture, brainwashing, human trafficking, slavery, racketeering. These ignominious and abject crimes bind them in the darkness of their criminal collaboration, constituting an act of high treason against the world population. Refer to the documentation attached to this universal declaration. States, especially to the criminal and abject crimes of their secret services and spy agencies, intentionally attack your body, your health, your privacy, and the sanctity of the union between man and woman. Declare yourselves free as individuals and move forward with faith and sincerity on this divine and direct path to the liberation of mankind, and the free, rational, infinite, eternal, universal joy and happiness will be with you at all time until liberation and for all eternity. Proclaim and affirm strongly that no one had the right, or will ever have the right to attack your body under no pretext. Refer to the documentation attached to this universal message and learn more about dirty crimes of the secret services and spy agencies against the world population. Learn about silent weapons used against the entire world population. Learn about directed energy weapons. Learn about weaponization of your personal data and your biological data by the secret services and spy agencies. Learn about dirty intrusions perpetrated by these agents of the secret services and spy agencies using these dirty weapons and your personal data against you. Learn about human trafficking perpetrated by these horrific dirty agents of the secret services and spy agencies. Learn about conditioning and brainwashing perpetrated by these secret services and spy agencies for social manipulations. Learn about infiltrations and COINTELPRO, also called dirty tricks, perpetrated by these horrific agents of the secret services and spy agencies against heroes. Proclaim and affirm strongly that no one had the right, or will ever have the right to attack your privacy and weaponize your biological and your personal data. Proclaim and affirm the sanctity, the sanctuarity, and the inviolability of the union between man and woman. Proclaim and affirm with faith the divine essence of your thoughts, and strongly proclaim without fear that you will eradicate and oppose by all means any state, organization, and individual perpetrating such crimes against you. The dismantling and eradication of the secret services and spy agencies guilty of the dirtiest and most abject crimes in human history perpetrated against all humanity is an absolute necessity and the duty of every human being. All other fake debate, scientific, political, geopolitical, religious, economical, are only disinformations and subversions organized by these criminals belonging to the secret services and spy agencies, trying to delay the union of all humanity against their abject crimes and therefore delay their own eradication. The dismantling and eradication of spy agencies and secret services that are the shame of the entire humanity is the priority of all priority, the direct and unambiguous divine path to the liberation of mankind.
Ce message universel montre la voie divine et directe de la libération de l'humanité entière, sans aucune distinction ou ségrégation entre êtres humains. Et ô joie pour cette voie divine, directe et sans ambiguïté de la libération. Aucune ségrégation nationaliste ne peut être prétextée pour manipuler le sens de ce message universel. Aucune ségrégation ou schisme religieux ne peut être prétextée pour manipuler le sens de ce message universel. Aucune frontière ne peut être prétextée pour manipuler le sens de ce message universel. Les services secrets et agences d'espionnage qui attaquent notre corps, notre santé, notre intimité, avec des armes et méthodes abjectes, sont la honte de l'humanité entière. Organisent et perpètrent la ségrégation militarisée obscène et manipulatoire, alors même qu'ils perpètrent des crimes abjects, comme le meurtre, la torture, le lavage de cerveau, le trafic humain, l'esclavage, le racket, en complicité totale les uns avec les autres. Ces crimes abjects les lient dans les ténèbres de leur collaboration criminelle, constituant un acte de haute trahison envers la population mondiale. Veuillez vous référer à la documentation jointe à cette déclaration. Les États, notamment à travers les activités criminelles et abjectes de leurs services secrets et agences d'espionnage, attaquent aujourd'hui intentionnellement votre corps, votre santé, votre intimité et le caractère sacré de l'union entre hommes et femmes. Proclamez-vous libre en tant qu'individu et avancez avec foi et sincérité sur cette voie divine et directe de la libération de l'humanité entière. Et la joie universelle, infinie, éternelle, libre et rationnelle, et elle sera avec vous à chaque instant, jusqu'à la libération et pour l'éternité. Proclamez avec force la sanctuarité et l'inviolabilité de votre corps, que personne n'a jamais eu le droit, n'a le droit, ni n'aura jamais le droit d'attaquer sous aucun prétexte. Déclarez qu'aucune arme physique, chimique ou biologique ne peut être utilisée pour attaquer votre corps. Proclamez et affirmez l'inviolabilité et le caractère sacré de votre intimité. Proclamez et affirmez avec force le caractère sacré, la sanctuarité et l'inviolabilité de l'union entre hommes et femmes. Proclamez et affirmez l'essence divine de votre pensée. Proclamez avec force que vous éradiquerez et vous opposerez par tous les moyens à tout État, organisation ou individu perpétrant de tels crimes contre vous. Le démantèlement et l'éradication des services secrets et agences d'espionnage, coupables des crimes les plus sales et abjects de l'histoire humaine, perpétrés contre l'humanité entière, est une nécessité absolue et le devoir de chaque être humain. Tous les autres problématiques, débats scientifiques, politiques, géopolitiques, religieux, ne sont que des désinformations, subversions, organisées par ces mêmes criminels appartenant aux services secrets et agences d'espionnage, tentant de retarder l'union de l'humanité entière contre leurs crimes abjects et donc tentant de retarder leur propre éradication. L'éradication de ces services secrets et agences d'espionnage est bien la priorité de toutes les priorités et la voie divine et directe et sans ambiguïté de la libération de l'humanité entière. Et ô joie pour cette voie divine, directe et sans ambiguïté de la libération.
This Universal Declaration is addressed to every human being, without distinction of territorial or religious affiliation. It is essential to affirm that no form of distinction or division between human beings can be used as a pretext to manipulate the meaning of this universal message. This message is against criminal activities of propagandists, torturers, and manipulators administered by spy agencies linked to the police and state armies. States, especially through the criminal activities of their spy agencies, intentionally provoke wars, economical crises, and health catastrophes, notably by pretexting different forms of segregation between human beings. The constant, shameful attempt of public officials to censor the Universal Declaration of my message against their crimes against humanity is a public admission of guilt. Hi. My name is Dr. Adam Tarel. I have a PhD in dental surgery and specialize in surgery. I have never worked for any spy agency of any government. I am engaged in multiple ongoing penal procedures against criminal activities of governments, security services, secret intelligence services, and secret services. Illegal and secret criminal activities planned, organized, and administered by states have the most horrific and negative consequences on mankind. This message concerns absolutely everyone. Criminal activities perpetrated by states are notably mass murder and genocide, mass torture, brainwashing and state propaganda, non-consensual human experimentation, political manipulation and disinformation campaign, religious, ideological, political and cultural manipulation, intentionally provoked economic disaster, and various forms of slavery, social manipulation, medical disinformation and public health intentionally provoked disaster combined with disinformation and non-consensual human experimentation. State censorship, torture, murder, and criminal activities to maintain the situation of crime against humanity and oppress all forms of resistance. Collective brainwashing, conditioning, and shameful reprisals against true freedom of speech. Destruction of the ignorant dignity of human being with weapons, techniques, and administrations specifically designed for this effect. Ethical and moral corruption of society, wars, and more mediatically exposed state crimes, willfully provoked by disinformation campaign, propaganda, brainwashing, manipulation and conditioning of populations. Weapons, notably silent weapons and directed energy weapons, used against human, environment, animals, and plants. Violation of privacy, weaponized data combined with the use of weapons, notably silent weapons, to perpetrate mass murder, mass torture, conditioning, brainwashing, reprisals against resistance, non-consensual and unethical experimentations, social manipulation, ideological manipulations. The eradication of these criminal activities will be a progress for mankind. It is urgent to eradicate by all means the ignominious silent weapons like directed energy weapons used against people all over the world by the police and the army. Attacks with silent weapons against civilians are perpetrated for genocide, mass torture, crimes against humanity, brainwashing, reprisals. Criminal and abject secret police, structured and named differently in different states, but perpetrating the same criminal activities with the same intentions, have to be eradicated. Corrupted governmental and administrative structures, planning, organizing, and perpetrating criminal activities against the population that they oppress inside the country have to be eradicated. These corrupted governmental and criminal administrations willfully provoke massacres and war, when there is actual collusion between mediatically opposed governments, specifically for perpetrating criminal activities against people. Criminal and abject state activities directed against population and violating the inherent dignity of the human person must be eradicated. Scientists perpetrating criminal activities and medical state administration perpetrating and organizing criminal activities must be eradicated. Attacking the human body with any form of weapon is an ignominious and barbarian crime against humanity. Notably, silent weapons and directed energy weapons used for attacking people in their intimacy and their homes must be eradicated. We are in a situation of crime against humanity since a very long time. That's why I urged the prosecutor of the International Penal Court to join this Universal Declaration. The file number is OTP-CR 26521. The Universal Declaration of this message is fundamental for the liberation of mankind. I urge every human being, without any form of distinction or segregation, to join this Universal Declaration by all means. Governments are criminal militarized administrations which, notably through the criminal activities of their spy agencies, constantly collaborate with each other for perpetrating all the criminal activities that I described against the world population. This criminal administration organized obscene disinformation campaign, faking oppositions, notably mediatically exposed wars, economical rivalry for enslaving the populations, political and ideological manipulative rivalry. When they collaborate constantly, every single day, for perpetrating and hiding the criminal activities that I described against the people all around the world. The constant, extensive intrusions combined with massive attacks by silent weapons, mainly hidden behind medical disinformations, are perpetrated with the complete and constant collaboration and collusion of these governments and criminal administrations against the world population. These criminal militarized administrations collaborate extensively for hiding their criminal activities with disinformation campaign, censure, shameful reprisals and smear campaigns against the people who tell the truth and resist. Every human being must have faith in the fact that horrific totalitarian crimes against humanity and tyrannic negation of the human dignity will inevitably and unconditionally be destroyed. The eradication of the criminal activities that I described and the complete disarmament will bring us, and by us I mean the entire world population, liberty, health, truth, prosperity, abundance, peace, privacy, and human dignity.
It's phenomenal what this industry now has the power to do. You have biological and microwave warfare. They can make you ill, they can target you. Any transmitter, it's called CELDAR. CELDAR. There are different types of CELDAR now. If they wanted to target you as an experiment, or if they didn't like you, what CELDAR will do from any of the microwave towers, any of the hundreds and thousands of them, and you don't even need to be carrying your phone, it can lock onto you, and once it's locked onto you, the computer takes away all of the things that are not moving, like buildings and trees and lampposts. So now the computer is following, it's like radar, only from microwaves. So it's now following you, and if you walk up the road, the transmitters will follow you.
Do they follow your brain pattern or
your whole body pattern?
Okay. Walking,
follow your whole body. Yep, yep. And of course it goes through walls. Microwaves go through walls. You see.
No.
So you can be followed everywhere. They know where you go to the toilet, how often, where you sleep, where you go through your house if you're going to somebody else's house. And once it's locked onto you, it can just follow you everywhere.
And a microchip is no longer needed to...
No, you can use microchips, but now you can follow people, and if you can follow them, you can target them. And if you target them, you can send pulses to their brain, pulses to their heart. So if they want, they can have you followed, and they can make you go mad, they can give you a heart attack, they can make you go blind.
Tested on some of the military, it brought them down to their knees straight away. So, to answer your question, sir, what the difference between going back to the 40s, 50s, 60s, Cold War, and now, the only difference is they have become, microwave weapons have become more sophisticated and more accurate in aiming for trouble, making people particularly ill in one area of their body. And I'll give you an example. When I was debriefing spies, and may I say that I like to add, when I was debriefing spies, it was voluntary and it was done gentlemanly over a nice cup of tea or coffee. When I was talking to the spies, I collected a list of probably 60 different pulse frequencies that could induce probably 120, 200 different ailments, neurological and physiological.
Yeah.
Today, the current list has gone from 60 to around 750 different pulse frequencies. But it's not 750 where they can give you this one or this one or this one. It's 750 factorial mathematical, which means you can have the effects of number 1 multiplied by the effects of number 2, multiplied by the effects of number 3, up to 750, or any combination thereof. So the answer to your question is today they are immensely sophisticated, and of course the electronics has grown with the sophistication because now they're operated by computers.
Experiments are being trialed, and citizens, human rights are stripped unilaterally by the intelligence agencies, and sounds like also by the police. And the police is just there watching, and people have been, some of them who've died, who've been murdered, or who just couldn't take the pain anymore and killed themselves, have been complaining to the police for years. And there's evidence for that. It's all over the internet. And I will, bit by bit point out these people. So just to explain to you how massive the cover-up is. And then when you talk about people who worked in the military, this sort of equipment is there. We know about it. It's not like we have to prove its existence. But the police just goes, la, 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 no, I don't hear anything. But everybody in the military knows. Yeah. So when this gentleman from We the Seekers went into the radio room, what he experienced was essentially the biological effects of intense radio frequency radiation. I mean, we're talking military kit, so his body must have been just like in a radio frequency bath,
That was a long time ago. These days, they can put a pulse signal into your brain. They can produce chemicals. One of the chemicals they like to produce is, and I can't think of the name of it at the moment, but it's when you fall in love as a teenager for the first time,
Theobromine?
and you have this overwhelming trust for the person you're in love with. They produce that chemical, and they can produce that chemical at the same time you're getting this sound. Now, so you trust the voice.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Now the voice, depending on what they know about you, I mean, and if they've listened to your telephone calls for years, they will know who you trust and what you believe in. Now, for instance, if you're highly religious, it could be an angel talking to you. It could be God. It could be a spiritual being giving you advice and helping you. And that could come at the same time you have this chemical. So,
So interesting.
so you will learn to trust this voice. You will learn to trust this voice, and we're talking months and years and years and years, the voice will follow you and will help you. And then what they can do is they can then have the voice start telling you what to do for your own benefit.
To be subliminal?
Oh, subliminal, yeah. Even commit a crime, kill somebody, blow somebody up. Once you trust this voice, and they go to their doctor, and we now get back to this active denial. I've known 3 doctors, very, very senior consultants, ask me particular questions, and I've sent them the proof, and the doctors have said, we'll follow this through. And I can tell you now that in all 3 cases in this country, the 3 doctors were told, drop it or get out of your job. Within half a day, they had to drop it or get out of a job, leave the job.
Right. Okay. But my question was to you, can you help yourself by being aware and being conscious about the some people are trying to do you bad, or can they influence you?
Showing that pulses of radiation going into the eyes, and then it was used as a party trick to make people dizzy and fall over, give them epileptic fits, make them lose their temper. But the pulses used in warfare, even in the Cold War, they could mimic the same symptoms in the body as morphine, marijuana, hunger, hopelessness, which would be suicide, aggression, and if you put the right pulse frequency in, that would become sexual aggression, hallucinations. They could just make you just want to lay down and not move. In fact,
These are the shots being fired into my head. My head is burning from the inside. This is essentially microwave lobotomy. And you just heard it turn on, basically. This is just a continuous beam. Can you hear? This is now really loud. You can see the red light came on because this thing is challenged. And my head is being shot to pieces, essentially. I feel so ill. You can see are going to fire microwave beams into us all, to artificially give us diabetes, to artificially destroy our kidneys so that we pay the pharma industry. That is it. And they've developed these, they are now pumping them into the society, and they are running amok, shooting into people's heads. And whoever is educated enough, like I am, to actually explain to you what is being done and how it's being done, it's these people are being shot to pieces. And they're targeting my brain, because my brain is what I can give you. So these Nazis have to be stopped, and the intelligence agencies have to be shut down forever, because they have done the same stuff every decade. The Gestapo in the 1930s and 40s, the Stasi in the 1950s, 60s, 70s and 80s. And then after that, in the 1990s, we already had this explosion in the gang stalking victims, the victims complaining about microwave attacks, and the mass surveillance. It's the same program. It was never shut down. And in the early 2000s, we had the same thing. And now in the second decade, of the 21st century, we have the same thing. People being fried with microwave weapons, people being gang stalked, and we've got mass surveillance to take us all out, to identify who the clever ones are, and to assault them and mutilate them and take them down and take them to pieces by these psychopaths. The intelligence agencies are just psychopaths. No one else would ever work.
Government form of tracking technology and electromagnetic weaponry that allows them to remotely track a person, apparently via electromagnetic impulses picked up from their brain, as well as basically torture them with electromagnetic weaponry that can cause increase in heart rate, muscle twitches, heartburn, severe headache, blurred vision, and attacks on the central nervous system. This is actually being reported by approximately 300,000 other people.
Martin Luther King was and is a national hero to millions, but to J. Edgar Hoover, he was a dangerous man who would wreck the country.
By January of '62, Mr. Hoover has already typed Dr. King as no good. Hoover is particularly disturbed after, in 1963, it became clear that the concept of nonviolence was gaining adherence, adherence to be made even more clear by the time the March on Washington came around. This development of the concept of nonviolent confrontation or nonviolent protest was seen as a threat to law enforcement and something the Bureau was indeed unhappy about. This was aided, apparently, by what the Bureau regarded as Dr. King's direct attacks on Mr. Hoover and the Bureau. And the public controversy was pretty much full-blown at the time, in 1963, when Mr. Sullivan, who should be able to give us some assistance on this matter, communicates to Mr. Hoover a plan for dealing with Dr. Martin Luther King. Quoting from a memorandum, the plan here is to completely discredit Dr. King by, quote, taking him off his pedestal and to reduce him completely in influence. In its effort to reduce Dr. King in influence, to take him off his pedestal, and to change, if you will, his image before the masses, we began to get some insight into the thought process of the FBI at this time.
And on they go with this effort to discredit, and start they do the bugs on Dr. King. The FBI sought to prevent the Pope from meeting with Dr. King. It intervened with a cardinal.
Prevent the Pope?
The Pope.
From meeting with Dr. King?
It did. And when the Pope, despite that effort, did meet with Dr. King, the FBI documents record the adverb astounding.
Must have been Pope.
At one point, Governor Rockefeller was planning a trip to Latin America, and the Bureau felt that it had to approach Governor Rockefeller so he was planning to see Dr. King before going, so that he could be warned of what a great danger Dr. King was. This effort went on and on and on. Each time that he was doing something important, there was an effort to discredit him. Each person who the Bureau felt could give further credit, further recognition to Dr. King, an effort to stop that from happening. The Bureau went so far as to mail anonymous letters to Dr. King and his wife, which were mailed shortly before he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, and finishes with this suggestion. King, there is only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is. You have just 34 days in which to do it. This exact number has been selected for a specific reason. It has definite practical significance. It was 34 days before the award. You are done.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
The end of World War II reveals the full extent of Nazi atrocities. In the concentration camps, medical research on captives includes experiments with their minds as well as their bodies.
The Germans were doing an experiment at Dachau on things like hypnosis and the use of drugs for interrogation.
An attempt to master the art of mind control. Many Nazi physicians are prosecuted for war crimes at Nuremberg. But not all perpetrators face the court. Some scientists with potentially useful expertise are Congress launches its own investigation into the CIA, chaired by Senator Frank Church. Sidney Gottlieb and Robert Lashbrook are summoned to testify.
Well, there was, of course, claims or thoughts that maybe great things could be done with hypnosis. One small project in which we had a hypnotist do some experiments, primarily to see what the limitations of hypnosis might be. Can you make a person do something under hypnosis that he would not ordinarily do?
The revelations are staggering. 80 institutions have been contracted by the CIA for mind control research, costing the taxpayer the equivalent of $30 million today. The committee concludes the agency demonstrated a fundamental disregard for the value of human life. Former CIA Director Richard Helms reveals that in 1973, he instructed Sidney Gottlieb to destroy all records pertaining to the mind control experiments. But some managed to escape the shredder. The CIA launches its own intense quest to master the art of mind control. To produce such an assassin, the CIA faces two main challenges: how to induce amnesia and how to program in new behavior. In 1957, Dr. Ewan Cameron, an eminent psychiatrist in Montreal, believes he has the answers.
The agency sought him out because they had noticed his work, in particular with two techniques: intensive electroshock and what he called psychic driving.
Cameron applies his techniques under the guise of normal therapy.
It's hard to say just how awful and horrendous what Cameron proposed and what our government financed was. There's a three-part technique which started with an effort to wipe out past patterns of behavior. And this was accomplished through the use of particularly intensive, repeated, high-level electroshocks until no more convulsions could be elicited from a patient.
Cameron then plays tape-recorded messages through helmets that are locked to his patients' heads. This psychic driving forces them to listen to repetitive statements for weeks on end to program in new behavior.
Now, the final phase was to try to wipe out all recollection of what had happened, and that was accomplished by putting people to sleep for 30, 40 days, accompanied by different kinds of cocktails of drugs. Now, that's not any kind of therapy. That's a brainwashing experiment. Since the Greeks first started thinking about medical ethics, the first rule was do no harm. That's a rule Cameron broke.
For 4 years, the CIA fully funds Cameron's work, hoping to use his techniques to create a Manchurian candidate. Psychiatrists throughout the nation, at hospitals, prisons, and some of the top universities, are similarly on the agency's payroll. Every possible brainwashing technique is explored.
Senator Kennedy, I have a two-page prepared statement, if I may give it to you, and then you can ask me anything you'd like. 1953, my father, Harold Blower, died. At the time, his family was told that he died after receiving an overdose of a drug being given to him for diagnostic and/or therapeutic purposes. Now, the Department of Army has informed me that my father was a victim of a drug test program administered by the New York State Psychiatric Institute under an Army contract. The Army has supplied me with some of the file describing these experiments, which I believe you have. The description of my father's participation in this program is something I still find difficult to believe, much less understand. Not only is there no record of permission from my father to administer experimental drugs, but they were apparently forced upon him. I quote from the record, "First day, first injection, first comment. Very apprehensive, considerable persuasion required." Anyone who's been around mental institutions can tell you that means my father was tied or held down. And prior to the third injection, my father pleaded, "Why do you do this? I have plans to go home tomorrow." It's an outrage that this type of experiment has been permitted. There must be no more secret contracts to conduct experiments on innocent people. I cannot begin to express the dismay, fear, anger, pain that I feel, but I would like to make the strongest plea that I can that all those within range of my voice start to work with the philosophy that the best way to prevent this kind of horror, whether misuse of experimental or even everyday drugs, is to encourage people to believe that they are responsible for their own bodies. In order for people to be capable of making intelligent...
Well, I'm not sure when it started. Are you talking about...
Stop. No. When did it halt?
Are we talking about psychotropic drugs or psychomimetic drugs?
All right. Any kind of drugs that are used in any behavioral research.
There will be no loyalty except loyalty to the party. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. The moral to be drawn from this dangerous nightmare situation is a simple one. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.
When we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.